Is this on
So
Wisa
this
or
was
is this on Ayapo Yapa?
it's on a Yappa Yappa.
Oh, baby, I thought we were going to jump on Wisa. Wisa Articulate.
But no, I don't have that one completely made out.
We have it on that channel, don't we?
I don't know, but can't change it now.
Sure, you could. You could just turn it off. No one here, and you can delete it. Oh, hi.
Well, who's in there?
I don't know. I saw number one pop up there and it went away. Maybe it was somebody who came in accidentally.
We see that backwards and they see it something.
Oh, is that how it works?
That's
Because I
what
think,
that's what I'm guessing.
well, I think when I did that video on my cards, I saw it backwards, but it's not backwards on the
Mm-hmm.
thing. How do you usually open up your channel chat? You have a greeting? I say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, fabulous. What do you
Right.
say?
They say peace. This is Ayapa. This is Ayapo Yapa. Ayapo Yapa is an acronym that stands for you aren't pissed off, you aren't paying attention. That's my spiel.
All right.
My
How you?
stick.
All right. That's your stick, and you're sticking
Stick.
to it.
Uh-huh.
Your stick, and you're sticking to it.
Right.
So I wanted this to go up on the We So Articulate channel, and I think that channel exists. Although I don't know. I think that you uploaded the same video that you were talking about with the Tales from the Hood. I think you uploaded that to that channel. But anyway, this is we're kind of having a chat about kind of this book that we finished reading, My Soul to Keep by Tananarive Due, which is a part of a series called the Immortal series that Tananarive Due has written. This is the first in the series. And I read many, many years ago, I think the third in the series, or maybe the second. And I thought that I had read the series, but now that I've read it, I'm not sure that I've read it. I think that certain concepts are familiar because I read later on and this was your first time reading it.
Right.
Okay. So before we jump into the book, there's some other kind of disparate ideas that I have that I kind of want to throw out. And for me, somehow they're all connected, but I can't. Did I say I'm Angela?
No, you did not.
I am Angela. Thank you for being here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Like, share, comment, subscribe. I'm just Bogarting. We were sitting back there talking, and we decided to do it live. So I'm just Bogarting the Yapo Yapa channel. But I have there's some disparate ideas that may seem unrelated on some level, but like in some level inside of me, they're all connected and they're related and they make sense. And it's connected to like kind of this concept. I don't know what it is, but it's like vision, how we see ourselves. Caribbean Fire, bless both of you. Yay!
Peace.
I'm so happy. Why is it hid for review?
I know. That's it. You're pressing the screen.
Oh,
There.
peace, bless you. Um, so
That's water sniper.
oh,
That's
Caribbean
it.
Caribbean Fire.
Right. Oh yeah, I just said that's water sniper.
How did you know that
New
was?
channel.
Oh,
That's a new
you
channel.
told me.
Yeah, I
Okay,
told you what
okay,
they did to
all
the
right,
channel.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right. So I'm going to kind of throw stuff out, and then we can chat about the book or whatever happens to come up, whatever is related. You know, on my channel, Be Fabulous You, when we do notes on the news, it's not it's whatever happens to come up for us. So we create it as we go. So this is a letter from one of my cousins, and there was a line. There's a piece of writing that I've been working on, and the reason that I've been working on the piece of writing, is because um, it's like the creation of the world that I want to see. So he said, I hope the next installment of your story wasn't in that letter. I wrote him a letter and he didn't get it. I really wanted to find out what's going to happen next. Can you imagine if we had a family that planned the way Tyrone's family did? Yeah, that's why I wrote it, because that's what I was imagining. Us all having families that get together and plan. Once a month, having a meeting, seeing what each other is doing, supporting and growing a network based on family elevation, we might be like the Kennedys. Now, I didn't particularly like that because I feel like a lot of our references, a lot of our touch points as Black folks
Right.
are connected to white folks. And I think we need to shift that because we're the originators, we're here first.
Right.
And then I think also, not only are we the originators and we're here first, but I think that things that impact us, like we talk about the syndrome where the people get held prisoner and then they start identifying with their
Helsinki.
captor. It's not called Helsinki, but you don't even need to say what it's called. It's like they
Well,
start.
it's never Helsinki.
No, it's not. They start.
Stockholm syndrome.
They start
Okay.
identifying.
it
So, but
said,
I
it
feel
said
like
Helsinki.
when I
Okay.
looked it up, I'm like, I think it was like less than 20 people who experienced that, and it was for a short amount of time. And when I look at Black folks, especially Black American folks, but Black folks all over, it's like we've been, I mean, we identify with our captors and
Right.
we've been held captive. And, like, I
And
feel like,
defend them.
and defend them, like,
Mhm.
but I feel like that syndrome or that situation, we need a term that comes from our experience and
Right.
that so I feel like I don't necessarily like this idea of the Kennedys, because I feel like there are lots of great strong Black families and we
Right.
need to start orienting ourselves to ourselves.
Right. Well,
um
let me interject. Um, when I used to talk about, oh, they're as bad as Hitler, or Hitler, 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 and then you pointed out, for Black people, we should use Leopold
mhm
as our go to when we're talking about the worst of the worst.
mhm
We shouldn't be mentioning Hitler. We should be mentioning Leopold.
or we should be considering maybe it's not Leopold. But when I read about Leopold, I was like,
Yeah, Leopold's
he's
a piece.
way, I mean, you're right.
Yeah, he's a
If
piece
we
of
want to
crap.
talk about pieces of boo boo, hey, Kendra, yay, you caught a flag. Whoop, whoop.
Please. And the thing is, the point is that Leopold was doing things
To us and
to
our
our people.
people.
So
And so then the other thing, speaking of what you said about uh, Hitler. Hey, Nikki, what up? What up? What up? What you said about
peace.
Hitler. I don't know because I come from a certain type of community or I've been around a certain type of community in Detroit. I think that I get, or maybe even when I lived in New York and Brooklyn, you get exposed to certain things, and so I feel like every Black person know about the Ma'afa, right? And when we were talking about it, did you know about the Ma'afa? You had never heard that
I never
term.
heard.
And so I looked it up, and there is a woman who, dang, I'm blanking on her name right now. Let the Circle Be Unbroken, I think is the author's name, who they say sort of originated. Peace, Emil A. New subscriber,
Peace.
welcome.
Peace.
I
Thank
mean, welcome to his channel. Who originated the term, but it's like a terrible occurrence. It's a Kiswahili term or a Swahili term for a terrible occurrence, a tragedy, an awful thing. Some people use it to refer to our journey across the Atlantic, our journey across the Atlantic Ocean and the people who got lost there. Some people use it as a broader term for not only that, but the ongoing oppression and genocide and attack on Black folks, that has continued. But I like this idea of terms like us being oriented to us. So I'm just gonna like go back to that. So that was the second thing, or that wasn't really the
hmm
second thing. But then one of the things that I was talking about.
Peace, brother Redbird. Redbird just came in.
Hey, peace, Redbird. Then another thing that came up today at work is I was listening to a podcast, and we did watch the movie Us, and I really want to talk about it more in depth, but I feel like I need to do some like preparation. But I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about ¿Cómo estás? Oh, she's talking to Kendra. But ¿Cómo estás? But they were talking about the movie Us, and I didn't realize, like, one of my colleagues was like, yeah, something I don't understand why the family didn't talk, and she was from the up, but then her family, she didn't teach her family to talk. And I'm like, the family didn't talk, and she like, no, the family didn't talk. And I'm like, that's like that movie Brother from Another Planet. I saw that movie, and however many years later somebody was talking about how good an actor James Morton,
Joe Morton.
Joe Morton is, because they were like, for example, in Brother from Another Planet, he didn't even talk. I'm like, he didn't talk, and I can't believe it because I watched the whole movie, and I'm like, it seemed like I would have noticed if the man didn't talk. And then I just Googled it today, and it said that he was mute. But when I Googled it today, because I was curious about him as an actor and him not talking, there were two things that really kind of disturbed me about it. One thing is that the storyteller's vision was that this was an escaped, enslaved black person from another planet.
Mm-hmm.
Why are all, even on other planets, black folks are enslaved in your imagination? And then the second thing is, I found out that a white man, it was his story. So I'm like, even in your imagination, white man, of course, it's not really a surprise. But that just kind of like annoyed me and got on my nerves. And I just, again, I feel like this idea of us being oriented to us and us creating our own stories and us
Mm-hmm.
having visions for ourselves, and what is our orientation, what surrounds us, what reflects us, what is our vision for ourselves.
Right.
What do we see for ourselves? What do we see for our families? What do we see for our communities? A lot of times when I hear us speaking to one another, we're like, it's always been like that. And white people are always going to dog us out. And in my head, I'm like, cancel, cancel, cancel. No, it has not always been like that. And I'm not claiming and embracing and projecting and affirming that it's always going to be like that. No. I feel like if we don't have an alternate vision, if we're not seeing and expecting and vibing and projecting different things, we're not gonna get different things. So that was, that kind of like, in terms.
I do believe they're always going to be like that. I don't think they're always going to be on top.
Right.
We'll always be on the bottom. But I
Right.
believe they're always going to be what they're going to be.
Yeah, that part
They're
I'm
not
not
going to change.
right. That part I'm not necessarily talking about. I'm talking
Okay.
about when we're like, black people have always been dogged out, and we always, it's like, just if you haven't tuned into it, just pay attention to how we talk and what we're projecting into the future, and ask yourself, is that the future that I want to embrace? Is that the reality that I want to live in? Is that what I want to create? Because a lot of times, if I stop and ask myself, I'm like, no, I don't want that.
Where I find that helpful though is when I say they're never going to change.
I'm not
That,
talking about them.
okay. Well, I'm still saying when I say they're never going to change, I'm saying that's why I want to separate from them
Okay,
is because I have no faith in that.
we're having a whole different
Is
conversation.
we probably are
Yeah,
because I understand what you're saying.
because I'm talking about the power of creating and
Right.
what we create and what our vision is. That's
Right.
what I'm talking about.
Controlling our own narrative.
Controlling our own narrative.
Right.
Okay. So for me, white folks ain't even in my narrative.
Well,
So
right.
I don't like to have a practice
I'm trying
of
to get them out of
talking
mine.
about them and thinking about them and focusing my energy on them and trying to change them or trying to analyze them or trying to tear them down. I want my focus to be on us, building us, trying to understand us, trying to support us, how to love us, how to grow us, how to free us. Like that's where I'm trying
Right.
to go. Me alegro mucho. Is that happy? Glad? What's going on? Allegro. I think that's happy. So that was the second. That was the second thing. And then the other thing was Henrietta Lacks.
Hmm.
So this idea of these cells of Henrietta Lacks being immortal and that immortality being stolen and used by without credit for the advancement of maybe all of us. Some might argue for all of humanity. I don't know if that's my argument.
Yeah, I don't think that.
But I think just this idea of our immortality being stolen without our knowledge, like her family just happened to find out. We just happened to find out about it. This has been going on forever. But I think that that physical thing of taking this woman's cells and using them, I think it's like that's writ small. I think you could look at that writ large and see black folks, like our immortality, our creativity, like just like
Hmm.
the essence, the essence of who we are being taken and hey, some unsunken one. being taken,
Like
and
something.
like our immortality, like and I feel like your creativity, your vision is a part of your immortality. Like there's this whole Afrofuturism movement where people are like projecting in their work Black folks into the future,
Right.
because there's a lot of work out there by other folks that we not there, or if we are there, we're forever slaves, or whatever. So I think those were the main sort of outside of the specific book things that I wanted to kind of bring into the mix.
Okay.
Okay.
So, let's go on ahead and do your thing.
No, I've been talking, 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 talking. So this is your first time. You are familiar with Stephen Barnes, who is Tananarive Dew's husband. They met at a writers' conference, as I understand it, and were sort of introduced, or their introduction was brokered by Octavia Butler. But I'm not familiar with any of Stephen Barnes' work, and I am familiar with Tananarive Dew.
Get Get Lion's Blood. That's by Stephen Barnes. That book basically it takes place in alternate reality, an alternate universe where black people basically took ruled the world and took over the world from the beginning. So
Are we okay? I mean, is it a good?
I still have to read it.
You haven't read it?
I haven't read it yet. That's what I'm trying to
I
say.
thought you said you read it and you liked it.
No, sweetheart. I said no. I said that I wanted to get it so I could read it. I like the premise of it.
Oh,
Right. Yeah, I need to. I definitely need to read that.
yes. Okay, so this is
So,
your first time reading Tananarive Dew. And for some reason, I love her name. I was reading something, I forget who she's named after, but it's like just such a, I don't know, I've never heard that name before.
Banana Reed.
Tananarive Dew. So Burns does a lot of alternate reality.
Right.
I'm checking my baby Spanish homework
Yeah.
as
He
we
wrote.
speak.
He wrote an episode of The Outer Limits that he won an Emmy for. It was a time travel episode. But
Mm.
I'm gonna get off on that. But yes.
We just kicking it. We just talking.
Okay. Yeah.
So
One of the best episodes they had.
was it?
Yeah.
What did you said it was a time travel? What was it called? Do you
Yeah.
remember?
Oh, I can't remember what it was called, but it was the one about the woman who kept going back in time and killing these molesters before they had a chance to
My last.
rapists was killing. She was like killing these rapists before they had a chance to commit the crime.
Huh? Did I see that?
I think so. Well, we can watch it. We can watch it tonight. I mean,
No.
it's a good episode.
I know, but I don't like to watch
Oh, that's right.
violent
It's kind
stuff
of late.
late at
It's kind of
night.
late. Yeah, it's kind of late.
Yeah, it's kind of late for me. So, what did you think overall of this book? What would you give it on a scale of? Because we were kind of cracking up at, we were kind of laughing at, even though I love Tananarive Due, we were kind of laughing at the author at certain points in the book. But off the top of my head, I can't think of it.
Well,
Like there was like some of the ways she handled stuff.
Well, yeah, the stuff that David did, the
Oh,
character of David, that was
Dawid.
now we
That's his
David,
given name.
right? Right. If you've ever read this book, then put a number one because I don't want to do any spoilers either.
Oh, well, we about to do spoilers.
You gonna do spoilers? In it?
I don't know. You don't want to do spoilers?
Well, somebody might want to read it.
My soul to keep. Okay, so let's talk. Okay, so okay, so overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this book?
Um, 10 being the best.
10 being the best.
I
On a scale of white to black, what would you give this? Black being the best.
I give it an 8. An 8. I give it an 8.
Okay, on a scale of white to black, what you giving it? Black,
Gray,
blackish.
blackish.
Yeah, I'd probably give it like a 7 or 8. I think this is the second book that she wrote, and I think that there were some things that she had some challenges navigating. So I love the premise of it. I love the idea of immortal black people. I love that there was so much stuff that like referenced Africa and was set in
Thank
Africa
you,
and dealt with dealt with Africa like I like that. I personally actually like the aspect that the main character was very very Christian, and so like I like to see her like how she kind of struggled with some of the things that she got exposed to or
right.
experienced.
And she married someone who was an atheist.
She married someone who was an atheist. So I like that. I really liked the relationship, the fact that the father in this book had a really strong relationship with his daughter. We're not doing spoilers.
Hmm.
Um, what else?
I think that made the what happened near the end of the book. I think that made that all more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way that she built up that relationship.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So that was a strong bond in the story. I think in some ways maybe even stronger than the bond between him and his wife.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Um, again, I really like the idea of the immortals, and I feel like considering like this is one, I think it's four books in this series, and so that's a huge undertaking. There are a lot of different threads to pull together, and even in just this one book, I think her skill as a writer, I don't think she's like fully developed. You can see how she struggles with some things, but I think that she was really strong for the most part in pulling together a lot of kind of things that could have been disparate, or it could have just been like really chaotic and like a mess.
mhm.
But I think she did a pretty good job of pulling it together. It was very readable. It was very compelling to me. You felt that some of the things were kind of predictable for you,
Yeah,
and you weren't
yeah,
happy about that.
yeah. There's a couple things I called. I can't remember offhand what it was, but I saw where they were going.
Hmm. And
Like
there wasn't anything that surprised you, like where you didn't see where it was going.
right,
Hmm.
like there were things in Octavia Butler's book
Which
that
one? We've
in
read.
in
We read two, didn't we?
yeah in
Wild Seed or
parable
Parable.
of the parable
We
of
read
the sower.
three because we read Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents,
Right.
and we read Wild
And
Seed.
both of those had some twists and turns
Hmm.
that I didn't see coming. And I
Hmm.
like that.
Oh, if you have read any of Octavia Butler's works, it was interesting because when we started this, you were saying how much this reminded you of Wild
It's
Seed,
Wild Seed.
which kind of surprised me. Maybe because I know where it's going, I was kind of like,
Right.
you know,
Oh, this is kind of off the subject, but
it's okay.
Psycho was doing a live stream last night, and they were talking about basically this comedy bit that
Chappelle, no.
Chris Rock did,
Hmm.
and he was going he talked about the M word and what M words don't do and so on or black people with it. And they say that
Oh, I
he
think
was
you
talking about
were
how
saying that.
he was talking about how we don't read. Black people read.
They
That's just
don't.
it, yeah. That got under my skin. I'm like black people read,
Hmm. I mean,
and I think we read a lot, and we read a lot more than we get credit for.
well, I
It's just
don't.
these freaking stereotypes.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true, but I do know that it's sort of like like it's kind of like if you want to hide something, put it in a book. Like if you want to hide something from black people, put it in the book. And I
Right,
think he even made that joke, but you
right.
hear that all the time.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
not
think
funny.
just like people, yeah. But I feel like it's like one of those like tried and true things that people say that everybody going for that you think everybody gonna be like. Redbird said he got tons of books. That you think
Right.
everybody gonna be like, that's right, like sort of like we were talking about the other day, like this idea there was this concept out there that like black men were disengaged fathers
Hmm.
and that they were just like absentee fathers and like the worst fathers, and some research was done and it's actually the opposite.
Right.
But before and even now, if you kind of throw out that trope, if you kind of throw out that stereotype, it's like, well, these po back children, they don't have their daddies and all these single mothers, and I don't know, like it's just kind of like it's some stuff that I feel like you can throw out and everybody or not everybody, but it's like gonna resonate as like true.
Right.
So I don't know if this black folks don't read. I mean, because I was like,
I have yet to meet I have yet to meet a black person who doesn't read. And
well,
when I say don't doesn't read, I mean that grab a book, and read. I have yet to meet one
Well, I don't
who doesn't
know.
read.
I know that when I had graduated from college. Now you don't have books here, really, but I had graduated from college the first time that I went to someone's house, and I was like, they don't really have any books. They had about like two or three books.
Hmm.
And I was kind of like, I had never really been exposed to that. I kind of, this is a library book. I've kind of gotten in the habit of using the library because I had become like a book hoarder. Like I had like a whole collection on homeschooling. I have I have a collection of astrological books, and I really, really, really like old astrological books. Like the older, the better. I don't know. It's something about that that
Hmm.
just fascinates me. I was just like, I can buy some books, so I kind of stopped buying books. But even this is just what's on the table now. But we got 1491. And I read this a couple years ago in a book club, but I want us to read it together and talk about it. Man, and you have a book that you have that I really want to read is The People's History of America.
Uh, yeah,
Uh,
Howard Zinn's book. I
Is
have.
that what it's called? The
Yeah,
People's History of
I have that
America?
in his second book. But the way that I read is just like I don't know if you remember when you asked me because I got all those
Hmm.
books on Fukushima and you were like you're getting all those at the same time. It's hard for me to read one book at once.
Hmm.
I jump from book to book.
Hmm. And then this numerology and the divine triangle. And I had this book years ago. I just got a new copy of it, but I'm kind of trying to buckle down with my numerology studies. And then, of course, this is a library book, but I
Hmm.
don't know. I'm trying not to accumulate a lot of books because I want to stay like mobile and like light and be able to move like shift on a dime and just grab a bag and go. And not have like a whole big footprint. So
I know what you're talking about. You better leave me alone.
like some people
My
have
video collection ain't going nowhere.
a big footprint. It's not, is it?
Yeah, most of it. I already
Uh,
told you.
well, you tell me different things, baby. I don't know what you be talking about. So, Christian Edward. Good evening, family. I've never seen your name before. You know that person.
Mm-mm.
Oh, well, welcome. Welcome.
Welcome.
Oh, it's your channel. Um. So yeah. So that's so okay. So on a scale of white to black, I give it a, a black, not like just a black to like, but it's a black book. I don't mean
Right.
that like it's not black. I just mean um. So what was there anything that you really enjoyed? Like what was your favorite thing about the book?
My favorite thing about the book was just the concept of the immortal
Mm-hmm.
and how flawed the I can't call him the main character, but the one that was the focus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's like
A
deeply
mess.
flawed, and
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, and he screwed some stuff up. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, bro. This character like messed stuff up to a point that it was laughable.
Mm-hmm. And we were cracking up.
Yeah,
And it's kind of like also it was
and
like
the book's not supposed to be funny, but it was
it's kind of like also this idea that it brings up for me of maturity. Like I remember when I was like about it was like my second year in college and my boyfriend at the time took me to Jamaica and I met one of his relatives and she was like an elder. She was like 70, 75 years old. And she was so immature to me and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, she's so old, but she don't seem mature. And I like just it just really like worked on me until I kind of like finally worked out that you can get older without getting wiser. And that
right.
was like one of the things that, I really saw.
Well, how old was this guy? He's like over what 2,000 years old.
I thought you weren't going to spoil
Well,
it.
that's not really a
Oh, because
spoiler
they
because
say right on
it's
the
the premise
back.
of the story is that the guy's immortal.
Yes, they do
It
say.
didn't have the sense God gave him. I was like, dude, really?
And part of it that I thought the part that I kind of liked about it is that well, I like that there was like a family that, he existed in the context of a community, unlike the character in Wild Seed, who was isolated. I think that both of the women in Wild Seed and in this book, you see how they're community oriented, family oriented in a certain way. But the man in Wild Seed and the man in this are, he exists sort of in isolation
Right.
and kind of tries to create community in Wild Seed, but this guy is like was created in the context of community.
Right.
But I like to see how this idea, and we'll see it more as the series develops, of how his lack of maturity and his lack of growth was the result of him not doing the damn work. Like, you got to do the work. Like, just because you get older, you're not going to do wiser. If you're not willing to sit your butt down and meditate, you're not going to evolve spiritually. If you're not willing to pray, you're not going to build a relationship with God. If you're not willing to change your eating habits, your body, you're not going to have strong. Like, you have to do the work. You can't just talk about it.
Well, here in this too, and this isn't giving anything away. The this character who wasn't matured, he didn't exist in a vacuum. He had a community of other black men surrounding him, and they were artists, they were writers,
Mm,
mathematicians. They just did
scientists.
scientists. They just did everything, and they were very mature. They learned from you know centuries of living, and so this guy ends up just being. I can't even remember how he got that, or I can't even think of how he could have gotten that way.
I do, because
But
he
in the
refused to. He wasn't he hadn't developed the discipline yet to sit and do the work that his brothers had done. His
true,
brothers, he like, I don't want to be meditating for no 8 days in a row.
but
That's
but
boring.
there's that other aspect, and that would be a spoiler. But there's that other aspect that we discussed because he lives in America.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that was because the rest of them were in Africa, right?
Hmm. I think, I don't know. They had traveled all over the world because there were,
Right.
but yeah. So, so true. Wrinkles and immaturity do not match well. So, I get, yeah. So, I guess I just want to invite us to think about the ways in which we can settle in and do the work that we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. Like, I kind of, and part of, I feel like part of the challenge of this character is that he was dealing with some emotional issues, and I feel like as this tribe of Black folk, we're dealing with a lot of emotional issues. We're dealing with a lot of scars.
Right.
We're dealing with a lot of distress. We're dealing with a lot of pressure. And so we find comfort in things like, oh, let's watch a movie. Oh, let me eat some ice cream. Like, there are ways in which we find comfort that is a short-term fix, but not necessarily for our long-term benefit. And so, how are some ways in which, we can think of ourselves as, see examples where, we've chosen to sit and deal with stuff as opposed to running away in the quick fix, and how can we build on that, in our personal lives, in our family lives, in our community? Because without us doing the work,
I,
the
I,
work ain't gonna do itself.
I, I think and will think that it all begins with like a psychological separation
Hmm.
from the prevailing culture, that we were raised in, because this culture is the ones that taught us to hate ourselves.
Hmm. Who taught you to hate yourselves? Who said that?
Who said that?
Who said that?
I'm asking you.
I'm asking you.
I don't know.
Yes,
But
you
I'm
do. You
asking you.
know who said it.
Who said it? Malcolm X said it. Yeah, I should have known that.
Who taught you to hate your black skin? But see, I think, to me, I feel like I don't really know how to settle in and have this conversation in a real way in this type of forum. When you in my work with people individually, I feel like it's easy on some level to say, Well, the answer is we have to separate mentally.
Right.
But I feel like the mental separation is easy to say, but it's hard to do.
Right.
How do we begin that process of separating? How do we continue that process of
Right.
separating? How do we maintain that process of separating when we're continually bombarded with things that like draw us back in?
Hmm.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Separation is also the Most High's advice to us. Kendra says to
Very true.
you.
That's that's very true. There's no way for us to survive otherwise. Um, you know how I've gotten because I watch, I watch political theater. I watch some commentators who talk about politics or whatever. But when I watch them, just like I told you, when I watch them, it's the same as watching a television show to me because I don't take any stock in it. I don't feel any connection to it because it has nothing to do with me as far as I'm concerned. As it has all these things have nothing to do with our people, and in my opinion, it's all a ruse to keep us connected to the system.
Mm-hmm.
Because as long as we're fighting to get our rights, as far as we're fighting for this and protesting for that, that means that we're connected.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I forget what the saying is, but it's like negative. I think it's negative attention is better than no attention at all.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're an energy vampire,
Mm-hmm.
you don't care what kind of my energy I'm giving to you. You just want my energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what they are, freaking energy vampires who do all this to suck our energy away. And all the time that I'm spending trying to beg them to let me into Starbucks, trying to beg them to treat me right, trying to beg them to give me reparations, all the time I'm spending doing that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not thinking of how to get the heck out of here,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm not working toward getting out.
Mm-hmm.
Every moment that I spend fooling with them,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what they want.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, one thing when we talk about political theater, which is like watching political TV, or like people talk about elections, or you should vote, or this analyzing the debate, or watching the
Mm-hmm.
debates, or whatever. That's what you mean by political theater.
Right.
So one of the things that I've noticed for myself, and I remember like when I do have done in the past physical fast, like where I would like not eat or limit what I was eating. Toward the end, probably about 3 or 5 years into doing quarterly fast, I started to realize that when I watch TV during a fast, that I'm much more likely to have like issues with eating, like cravings, and like, oh my gosh, I really want a whatever it is. I get, and I realize it's because I'm watching like all of the commercials. And so when I do like an eating fast, I really need to do like a media fast as well, because then I get very suggestible, and there's so much stuff coming at me to, like when you walk into the store and you see, the when we were in Costa Rica, and they had like Oreos that you had never seen before, like
Yeah.
different flavors.
Yeah. Kind of things.
And it's sort of like when you see the stuff on the TV, it's like it's suggestible, and it gets, so I had to begin to work on moving in the direction of watching less TV when I was cleansing, because I knew that that would increase my cravings. And I never got to the point where I didn't watch any TV during cleansing, but it made a difference. And then the other thing I noticed is that during the political campaign that happened for the president of this country a couple years ago, I was spending time with my mother, who watches a lot of MSNBC, and I got really like, I wouldn't consider myself a person who's like, I hate somebody, but I got to the point with your president, with Zero, where if like, it was just like, it wasn't like a healthy place for me to be. Like if I could see somebody have a heart attack and die, even now I probably would be like very happy to watch it. And that's not necessarily my personality, but I think that it was because I was consuming so much of that political theater and I couldn't handle it in a healthy, balanced, sane way, you know. And so that was something that like now that I don't watch as much of it, I don't feel as much like anger and desire to see somebody get their comeuppance or their bring downance or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same effect on me. When
Mhm.
I watch it, it's when I watch when I watch any political theater, I may as well be watching Sesame Street.
Right, but different people are
All
different.
right, because I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah, none of that stuff is real. Doesn't matter. They're all lying. And,
yeah, but it was
you know,
something about some is like I just feel like um the worst of the worst just stayed winning, and I just couldn't. I don't know. Like the more attention I paid to it, I think the worse it was making me feel, and it just like seemed so unjust and so wrong, and I just couldn't seem to like reconcile it with any of my belief systems. It was just like,
mm-hmm.
it was just like it's just messing with me, and it was just like, yeah, it was not good for me.
Yeah.
It was messing with me. Um, so, yeah, what are some of the tools that you've used to separate? What are some of the ways in which you think you've separated from the system? And what were some of the tools you used to do that?
One of the major ways was when I removed myself from the belief in the system.
How did you do that?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if there was like any type of steps that I did for it. Um, there were a lot of things I had to drop.
Hmm.
And, a thought process, as in, one day we can fix this system,
Hmm.
and that 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 belief that one day the system could be fixed evolved into the system's not broken.
Hmm.
It does, and I think it was when I started seeing things for what they really were, and understanding the mechanics of the system, the purpose of the system, the design of the system, and the fact that it works the way it's supposed to work. And there is no impetus for white people to change the system. And I think that's one of the biggest ones for me is because you're asking a people, in this case, white people, you're asking a people to put themselves in a position where they no longer have their privilege and they're basically cut off at the knees so that I can rise up. Why the heck would they do that? Why would they do that?
Hmm.
What's their what's what's in it for them
Is
to
it
do that?
Frederick
That's
Douglass who says
crazy.
power concedes nothing without a demand? It never did and it never
Mhm.
will. And not just the demand, like, I demand you concede, but like a demand, like, you know, So Kendra says, good question, Angela. How do we remove ourselves completely? And actually, the question that I was asking is not how do we
It's
remove,
multifaceted, but
yeah,
go
not
ahead.
how do we remove ourselves completely, but even how do we begin the process of removing ourselves? And more specifically, I guess I would like for us to have a conversation about specific examples of ways, maybe small ways, that we have
Hmm.
individually removed ourselves from aspects of the system.
Right, and a big part of it is all about the mental shift of what things. In other words, if you say Ayapo, stop, you need to stop eating this processed food,
Hmm.
and I just have it in my mind, I've always eaten this processed food. I've eaten it since I was young, da da da. But the paradigm changes.
Hmm.
The paradigm changes when I realize I'm eating poison.
Hmm.
I'm eating literal poison.
Hmm.
And then that is like the first step to help me break away from it, because
Hmm.
now I have a clear understanding of what I'm doing.
Hmm.
You know, where well, the system can be fixed. We have to get white people understand our pain is, and then you shift and
Mm-hmm.
you realize they already know
Mm-hmm.
our pain.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones who cause our
Mm-hmm.
pain.
We walk around here joking, "You're hurting me! You're hurting me!" Because it's like they already know.
Right,
That's they're like, "Yeah, that's what I'm." Thank you for the feedback. That's what I was trying to do.
exactly.
I want to just loop back because when you were saying that about with processed foods, I remember my mother. Some of y'all might have heard me talk about this, but we had a cousin who had an amputation due to sugar diabetes or diabetes. I never even heard diabetes called sugar diabetes till I read a book called The Sugar Blues. I'm like, sugar diabetes? And then I asked everybody, have you heard of sugar diabetes? And everybody I've heard asked, they're like, yeah, sugar diabetes. I'm like, oh, I just thought it was diabetes. I never even knew that there was a connection between diabetes and sugar. But anyway, he had an amputation due to diabetes, and we went to visit him in the hospital. He was asking us to get him a candy bar, and all while he was going through, and it was like, we're not getting you a candy bar. You just had your skit amputated, and we gonna contribute to the issue. But he was just trying to get some comfort. He just had his leg amputated. He was trying to get some comfort. But we were just so we were like it became kind of like this conversation as he was leading up to it, and we were reading different books about sugar and talking about sugar and the industry of sugar and the exploitation of people. But my mother would always say, you're taking your money, your energy, and you're going and you're paying for food that's going to make you sick and is going to destroy your body. Right. You're paying for poison, and you use that term. Right. And whenever she would like go get a piece of cake, and she'd be like, "This is poison. I'm eating poison." And she would just like it's like it just started like being something that like even though it didn't stop her immediately from doing it, it started to shift her perspective on it and her take on it. And hearing her say it, it was just kind of like, oh, whenever I go buy something, not so much now, I've gotten out of the habit, but talking about it again, it's kind of like I'm buying poison. I'm paying somebody money so that I can poison and hurt myself.
Right. And here's the thing. Here's the thing too, Kendra, is like I had a bunch of jelly beans today.
Mm-hmm.
I had a bunch of jelly beans. I had some vegetables today.
What vegetables did you have?
String beans.
Oh, you had string beans?
Yeah.
Oh, I had string beans too.
Yeah. And so I have that. I have that, and then I have what you prepared. And
now, what I prepared tonight was a mess.
Well, it was good.
It was some whole grain pasta,
but it wasn't a bunch of processed crap. What
the meatball was processed.
Well, yeah, but
wait a minute,
right? But don't get me away from my point. My point is, I have the jelly beans, and I have some potato chips and whatever. My point is that even with the knowledge that that processed stuff isn't good for me, it's still a process for me to totally get away from it. So it won't happen all at once necessarily. Some things happen faster than others, but you can know what you need to do. You can know what's going on, and still it can take some time for the full disconnect to happen.
And not just for you, but for all of us whenever we're working on anything. And I think you live with me being sometimes I get really like anxious about like, oh my God, you didn't eat any fruits and vegetables today. Like I can like really freak out about it. And it's like intellectually I know that it's a process. Years ago, you probably don't know us, but there were people who were like, Angela, you always talk about process, 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 the cleaner process, process, process. Everything is a process. Like it's like I know it, but like when I like just it stresses me out. Mm-hmm. And so I like it's a lot. But it's a process for all of us. Um Most work that we have to do is a process. It's not going to be easy. We have to be gentle with ourselves. We have to be patient with ourselves, and we have to be as gentle and as patient with one another as we can be as well.
Right. It's, the thing is taking that out of the realm of food and putting it in like other areas. When it comes to the political process, well, we need to march, or we need to protest, or we need to go vote. and we were taught that all our lives. And so it might take time to actually get away from that mindset of, we can do something to change the system or to fix the system. No, we can't. No, we can't. And that's I'm not being defeatist. I don't think.
Hmm.
I think that it's more helpful for me. Well, for me, it's more helpful to say no, we can't, and then that way I start focusing all my attention on getting the heck away from here.
Hmm.
You know, getting the heck away from the system
Hmm.
because I'm like that system is a wrap.
Hmm. It's a rap and it's a racket. And I understand it's going to take time and patience is required. And building on that time and patience is required for us to separate from the system, for us to sit down and develop our discipline as individuals, as families, as communities. It's that you start something and it's working well, and for whatever reason you fall off. And we have to like continue to start again, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So, you start seeing some improvement, you start seeing some progress, and you may fall off, and that's okay. Or just Christians say backslide. That's okay. Just start again. Just restart. Just begin again. That's
Right,
okay. Like that's part of the process. That's part of being patient. So yeah.
right. And I'm a really well. We're both very big proponents of black love, and in the books we read that pertain to black people, and it's our narrative. Like we're just battered by these images every day. We was talking about that Batman piece where they show this black woman. She was unnecessarily hostile, and then he has a blackish girlfriend, and
This
all
is
these
the preview. What
for
is it called?
Joker.
For
Joker.
Joker, the movie preview. Is that what it's called? A
Yeah,
preview? A
yeah,
trailer. This
trailer.
is the trailer for Joker the
But
movie.
not just Joker. It's like every place that you see it. But I, but I think that what's left out of the conversation when it comes to black people is really how can you relate to someone who doesn't know anything about your struggle? How can you relate? There's white people who will want to say that they can relate. You can't relate to my struggle. Even if you're biracial, you can't relate to my struggle. You cannot. And so, what am I doing with you?
Hmm. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that exactly. Um,
What for white folks?
for biracial
For
people,
biracial
I
people?
think it just depends on people's experiences. Now, a white person, I don't, and it's like if I was watching something, one of your videos, and we were talking about it, and it's like I just don't have enough personal experience of white folks. Most of my experience of white folks is an abstraction and just looking at how they move in the world. We heard the story of this 15, 14-year-old child who killed his family this
Yeah,
morning.
14.
6 month old baby sibling, 6 year old sibling, another sibling, mother and father. And then, just the other day, it wasn't even 4 days ago, we hear somebody drive, was it 4 days ago, driving down the street killing
Oh,
people.
right.
And then, it's just like every time you turn around, and it's like I want to say it's like violence for no reason and hostility and aggression for no
Yeah,
like or
you got the children that just put the bodily fluids in their teachers' food.
oh, you were telling me about that.
Yeah, and they were showing that. That's like
That's
make you want to throw
disgusting.
up.
That's
But as
disgusting.
you were saying, there's no prompt. There's no reason for it.
I don't
What
know. I mean, maybe there is a prompt and a reason, and I just don't understand it.
for
Um,
those little white boys to be putting that?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I just don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to
They
me.
were they were putting they were putting semen and urine in this food that they were serving to their teachers. And they showed one of the children, and of course they
It's
blurred his face
disgusting.
out, and he was like squeezing it onto whatever, and he was getting ready to give them. It was it,
It's
but the
disgusting.
point the point being though, there's no reason for them to be doing that. There's no reason for somebody just to be driving down the street and gunning people down and all this, and maybe inside their own head. they have some psychotic reason,
Yeah.
or maybe in those children's heads, it was some kind of a joke or whatever. But but when you come down to it, there's no real reason for it. And
Mhm.
when they talk about oh, I'm bored.
Mhm.
You're bored, but your boredom or your cure for your boredom never has something to do with going and feeding the homeless or
Right.
going and doing something
Right.
constructive. No,
Like,
you're bored, and all that you can do is go and take a baseball bat and knock down people's mailboxes
or the thing I
or
don't,
spray paint their cars.
and the thing that kind of like I'm not. When I heard about cow tipping, I didn't. I heard about it as an adult. I'm like, you're tipping cows over? Like, what did the cow do to you? Like, I don't understand. Like, and it hurts them. Like, I don't like. I feel like, why are we out here being mean and violent for no reason?
Right.
Why are we out here? Like, I feel like,
But it's not us.
oh right, I shouldn't say we.
Right. It's
Right,
not us doing that
right,
crap.
right. Um,
And if it is one of us, they're white identified hanging out with them like
right. And I feel like a lot of times, in at least from my perspective, when you're dealing with violence related to Black folks, it seems like it's like you're cheating on me, and I'm coming after you, or I'm mad at you. It's not like I'm going out and killing random people that I don't know. Like, it seems like it's somehow there's some kind of thing where it's like I may not react that way if somebody was cheating on me or I was mad at them. I haven't yet, killed anybody or thought I'm gonna kill somebody because I'm
you
mad
don't
at
do
them.
me no favor.
Do you
No,
know?
go ahead.
Do you know
I
favors
said,
with
don't do me
killing?
no favor. No,
With just
yeah.
you
That's
watch
all.
your
That's
p's and
all.
q's and you won't have to
That's all
worry
right.
about it.
That's all right. I'm watching. Anyway, but you were just talking about going out and killing random people that got nothing to do
With
with.
you, don't know you. I mean, and when they talk about like this whole like misnomer of like black on black crime, it's crime is usually like normal crime, and I don't know if crime is normal, but usually it's like in the context of the people that are around you that are close to you.
And
There's
crimes of
some
opportunity.
right.
Mm.
There's some context for it, but these killings, I don't. I mean, now maybe we were talking about the family side or whatever they call it when you kill your family. There's a term I saw because I googled it today. But maybe the boy felt that, or that the mama and daddy didn't give him Cheerio or gave him Cheerios, and he wanted Lucky Charms, and maybe the baby child came and took away the attention. So maybe there was some, I don't know what, but that I feel like in a way is in a different category. But these just, and then also it makes me like feel like when I'm like out and about in the world more and more, I wonder, like, I look at them differently now because I kind of feel like, is this like we're driving down the
Is one
street?
of them
Is
gonna
this
pop
one going
off?
to pull out a gun and just start shooting me? And a lot of times you'll see these videos and stuff, and it just seems like senseless. Like, you don't understand their rationale or why they mad. A lot of times when I'm looking at, like, like the person who got elected, like these people in like public office, or these rich people, or these people who supposedly like have it all, like you're a rich white man with property and power, and you are, and like, why are you mad?
Right.
Like,
Right.
why are you so mad? You winning. You can't.
But here's part of the problem is that we try to understand them from the standpoint of our personalities and for in our spirit and, as opposed to saying they're just a bunch of freaking barbarians
Yeah. Or aliens,
or
animal, or I don't
aliens
even like to use the term
or
animals, because the only animals I know, I guess, are like a dog. And Bella, who lives in the house, she's real sweet. Like, I'll never really. I mean, sometimes she does try to chase squirrels, and I think if she found it, I don't even know what she would do, because the squirrel could probably take her because they had them strong mouth and teeth. But I don't know. She don't seem. She doesn't. She's sweet.
right. So I get it. You don't necessarily want to call animals, but they're a brutal, hostile,
angry,
angry,
violent.
violent people. You can tell it.
And I
You
don't.
can
I
tell
put
it from their
people.
history.
I'm like putting people in quotes because I'm
Right.
like, are I
Don't
don't
know if
know.
they're necessarily
I don't
human
know.
because and it was very interesting when you were showing me the thing about lactose intolerance, and then it showed that only white people have like this low incidence of lactose intolerance, and everybody else has like this higher. And I was saying it's because
70,
yeah,
80, 90,
yeah, and they're down in the 40s,
30.
something
I think it was
the 30s.
33 or 30.
And I just say it's because they're not human.
Right.
But the whole thing is that when they're going out and they're doing all this, doing all this stuff, they're just acting according to their nature.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't understand it. And that might be, yeah. Kendra said biracials, for the most, cannot identify fully with the Black experience.
That's what I
I have
believe.
some of them in my family. Even God will never understand Lucifer. Mm.
For,
So,
I agree with you. I agree with you. There may be like a few intersections of commonality, but I would never be able to be in a relationship with a white person or a biracial person or an Asian person or something and be able to have the same kind of conversations that you and I have.
oh, well, yeah, not the same kind, but I'm just saying,
On that level and going
right,
to that depth.
right.
And that's what I'm talking about. Why would you want to be with somebody that you can't even relate to in the most raw form? That's going to help to lift both of you up.
Yeah,
I'm all about the black love.
yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm starting to, it might be past my bedtime. What time is it?
Maybe it's 7 o'clock.
No, it's not. It's late. It's 9:08, which doesn't seem late theoretically, but yeah. So what you up to? What's going on with you? Drop some good news in the comments.
I know. I know. Kendra, bless her heart, she just sticks with it. Bless her heart. I love that sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love you too. Um, so I don't know if there's anything else we want to say. We do have the next book. It's not called There's My Soul to Take, but I think My Soul to Take is number 4 or number 3. I don't know what the next one is. Um,
Immortal something. I can't remember the name of
it's something Blood Colony? No, I don't know. But anyway, Stephen King, if anybody, I used to like Stephen King books, but then I think it was Pet Cemetery is one I was reading when I was a teen, and I haven't read one since. It was just too, it scared me, it freaked me out. Like I couldn't put it down. It wasn't Pet Cemetery or something else. I couldn't put it down because I wanted to know what was going to happen, but I was getting really really scared. So it was like I got finished with it at like 2 or 3 o'clock at night, and I was like in my closet with the light on, like trying to wait for the daylight to come. But anyway, Stephen King says this is
it.
an
What?
Stephen
You was in your
King.
closet.
I was in my closet because I was scared.
When I'm scared, I like be in the middle of the room with all the lights on, all my
I was
clothes on.
I was hiding. I was
No,
hiding.
I ain't gonna hide no closet if I'm scared. Shoot,
Because then your back up
shoot,
against
that's
the
where
wall
everything is.
in the
Oh
closet.
yeah.
But anyway, Stephen King on the front of this book says an eerie epic bears favorable comparison to Interview with the Vampire. I love this novel. Interview with the Vampire. Who wrote that?
Anne Rice.
Oh, Anne Rice has that movie that I used to really, really like called, what was that movie?
We watched it.
hmm The Feast of All Saints. It's a book. I think it's a book, but I've only seen the movie. But I don't know why, because y'all know I'm fascinated by colorism. So all that Jean de Couleurs and all of that colorism, I was just like, that's how they did it. I don't know.
Anne Rice. That's
A white
Rice.
woman.
That's the Riceland sister.
I don't know who Riceland is. Who is that?
Riceland Rice.
I don't know. Did you just make that up?
Riceland is a brand of rice.
Oh, that must be some white rice rice. Y'all know I don't do white rice. I only
Right.
do brown rice. I don't know nothing about no rice blend rice.
Okay. I'm gonna tell you, Joe. This this horse walks into a bar. The bartender looks at him and says, "Why the long face?"
That's the end of the joke.
That's the end of the joke. A horse walks into the bar,
Because horses
and,
have
and
long
the
faces.
bartender says, "Hey, why the long face?"
Yeah, I got it. It just that one. Sometimes you're funny. That one, I'm gonna have to take a pass on that
No,
one.
no, that's it.
If I
No,
could rewind it,
that was darn funny.
Jessica. Now they got the little sticker over the thing. Jessica is an African American something ambitious as she is bright. She is chasing the biggest story of her life, a story that strikes closer to home than she knows. Dawit, Dawit is an immortal whose ancient thirst for wisdom leads him to break the first commandment of his kind, not to fall in love. I don't know who wrote the back of this. I got some issues with it. Together, they are about to pay the ultimate price for their ambition and their. And then Octavia Butler. Now they should have had the Octavia Butler quote on the front because even though maybe to some people Stephen King is bigger than Octavia Butler, to
Right.
me Octavia Butler is like, you know, as
So,
I've read some of her stuff over and over again, I see, I'm like, I don't love her as much as I used to love her. It's kind of like when you grow up and you love your parents, but you see that they're human. When I first read Octavia Butler, it was like she could do no wrong. She was just like it was just perfect. And now I'm kind of like, but I still love her.
right. I like Octavia Butler, but I think she's a little easy on white folks for me. I'm
Hmm.
like, that's okay.
Well, I can't wait to read what you create in your vision and your world. And but
You
Octavia,
already read it.
well, it's in process.
Oh, okay.
Octavia Butler said, I enjoy reading the kind of novel that seduces me right into it and makes me forget about work or sleep. My soul to keep does that beautifully.
I thought that way about Big Top Pee Wee.
I never heard of that.
Pee Wee Herman, the first movie. Oh no, that was his second movie.
And this is her. I don't know if you can see her. This is the author. But anyway,
Tananarive.
this is a nice image of her. She's on Twitter, and see, she looks her face looks really interesting to me here. I think it's a really nice image of her. I don't know what you think if you
Mm-hmm.
saw it, but like on Twitter, she just looks like this is a much stronger image. Like her Twitter image, she looks like hi, like your auntie. On this one, she looks like she could be an immortal.
Yeah, dig that. That's right. I'm in love. Black love. Black love. Forever.
So that's it. That's the
Yeah. So we
Did
about to
anybody
go.
see the
Oh, I thought
Henrietta
you were
Lacks
doing.
movie or read the Henrietta Lacks book? Did you see the movie or read the book? You said you checked it out of the library, but you didn't
Yeah,
read it.
I didn't finish it.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Noise, noise, ice, black love, baby.
Yeah. When I everything I know about Henrietta Lacks is from different um, like documentaries and interviews.
Mm,
That's all. And it started pissing me off, so I kind of stopped watching. I was like, this is a doggone mess, and it's just white people once again profiting off of our people and
mm-hmm,
shutting us out of it.
mm-hmm,
You know, so yeah, that kind of started ticking me off.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Um. So that's it.
Okay, you gotta say good night to everybody.
Good night, everybody.
We got Kendra in there, and I don't know if Redbird's still there.
Do you have this thing where you can see who's been here and who's? Oh shoot! I keep
I
trying
know you keep touching that screen. Let me see
foolishness.
the participants. Oh, we got here's Kendra.
Oh, bless your
Oh no,
heart.
I know. It's just we got to send her a prize.
The stick to itiveness.
Right.
All right, that's it for me.
And for me too.
Thank you for being here and your thoughts, your comments, your work, your discipline, your development, your growth. Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Peace.
Peace.
You have a way you sign off? No.
I say
Just
peace.
bye. Bye. Bye.
Okay, we out.
Yeah. He's so articulate.